Well, yesterday, GRF had their April meeting. It ran for the open meeting, about 3 hours and I think it was about 47 minutes or so. And the board president is with us today, John Parker. Good to see you, John.
Okay, good morning.
Nice to have you here today. And kind of a long open meeting, but there was a lot of different things you folks had to talk about and kind of go back and forth on. And one of the things you want to talk about first is about the settlement, United Mutual 50, and if you would explain that for everyone, because there might be some people here that are listening that are like, we're not familiar with this at all.
Well, there was a lawsuit. When I started on the board, we had three major pieces of litigation. Mm-hmm. We had a situation with Restaurant 19.
That's right.
We had the Fresley Stone thing, and then we had the United Mutual 50. So I'm happy to say that as of last Thursday, mm-hmm. all three of those are signed, sealed, and delivered. Okay. So we're done. And what happened last Thursday is that even though the four board officers had signed an agreement to, essentially settle the Mutual 50 United suit, mm-hmm. the corporate members needed to ratify it. Okay. So last Thursday, we had that meeting, and it was ratified. And the two significant things that come out of the settlement, one is that the Towers is now entitled to an ex officio seat on the GRF board. Okay. And ex officio means non-voting. Okay. But they participate in the discussions in both open and closed meeting, they just don't vote. Okay. Similar to an advisor on a GRF committee, mm-hmm. or any of the other committees, because advisors don't vote. And then the other significant thing is there is now a stipulation that any capital expenditure by GRF in excess of $500,000 mm-hmm. must be approved by the corporate members. Right. And so those are the two things. And so one of the big issues that we dealt with yesterday was pickleball. Right. And this is the board packet that every director got, and this is only for the open session. Wow. And we get this about 5 or 6 days before mm-hmm. the meeting, and it's each director's responsibility to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, mm-hmm. know what's in here, and how they're going to act upon various items in here. The pickleball section of this is 84 pages. Wow. And pickleball, the need for pickleball was recognized and began in 2010. Mm-hmm. I remember. So this is a project that has been kicked down the road, has been delayed, has been postponed. So where we're at now on pickleball, yesterday we passed an endorsement that came from the Maintenance and Construction Committee. Mm-hmm. And essentially what we've said is a consultant will be hired to begin immediately on construction drawings. We're not talking about conceptual, we're not talking design development, we're talking the construction documents that goes to a contractor, the thing gets built. But the stipulation is that the absolute maximum budget is $500,000. Not a penny over. Right, or as you said in the meeting. $499.99. Yeah, and the reason is that way you can get through quicker, correct? Well, it's not only getting through quicker, that is about the maximum amount of money given all the other things that are mm-hmm. going on in the village, all of the other requests for funds. That's about the most amount of money that is fiscally responsible to spend at this time. And what we have is we have a 52-year-old facility mm-hmm. that started out as tennis, then became paddle tennis, and then became pickleball paddle tennis. And it is in a state of total disrepair, and it cannot be repaired. So all we're trying to do is to create safe, usable mm-hmm. courts for the fastest growing racket sport in the country. So the consultant is charged to build as many courts as they possibly can within that financial restriction. And so that's where we stand on pickleball. Okay. And as I said in the meeting, my goal is that construction will begin before my term ends. Yes, you did say that. Now, for people who maybe didn't watch yesterday the meeting,
The location of these cords?
Gate 16, parcel 3.
Okay, and parcel 3 is as you come in gate 16, is it on the right or left side?
Immediate left.
Okay.
Immediate left.
So it's where that kind of open
Yes,
field,
it's an
the
undeveloped
wildflower fields, yeah.
It's an undeveloped
Right,
parcel
okay.
pad. So that's kind of where we are in pickleball, and the vote was 8-2.
Okay,
So that was encouraging that we had that kind of board support.
right.
The two people who objected were not a surprise.
Okay,
The other thing that we dealt with yesterday is we're putting the community on notice that effective January 6th, 2018,
right.
we will no longer broadcast analog TV. And our big reason is we have a huge component in our community that wants better internet service.
Right.
And it turns out that we have the capacity to increase the speed of our internet service if we get rid of analog TV stations. An analog TV, and I'm probably preaching the choir here, but an analog TV station, one station is equal to 14 high definition. So it
Right.
eats up our bandwidth, and it's keeping us from providing the fast internet. So if someone has an analog TV, they can still use that TV, but they have to get a device that will convert that
Right.
signal that goes into their TV set to a high definition signal. And we have devices available here, and they're various stages
Right.
of what they deliver and different cost. But a person does not have to get rid of their TV, they just have to get one of these devices.
Exactly.
And federally, analog was dictated by the federal government years
Yes,
ago.
it was. Yeah.
And if you go to Time Warner or any of those people, there's no analog.
Right. Yeah,
So
exactly.
we have been extremely sort of patronizing, and now we have a greater need for better internet service, and so it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, time to move
Time
on.
has come.
Yes, exactly.
So we just want people to understand that that's going to happen so they can prepare. And if they choose to get rid of their analog TV, one of the issues that came up yesterday
Yes.
is heavy items, bulky items under our waste management contract.
Yes.
You can call as an individual the waste management company. They will come to your manor, pick it up, and take care of it. And you get 2 of those a year free.
Right.
So that should be a non-issue.
Yeah, exactly.
And then another thing that we dealt with yesterday was EV charging station. In other words, a power source for
Right.
electric vehicles. And this started out with a proposal from Southern California Edison that, like all initial proposals, sound like a really
Yeah,
good deal.
exactly.
And then when you start delving into it, maybe it's not such a good deal. So the Edison thing was going to require us to put 20 charging stations at a clubhouse and another 10 at another clubhouse. And it committed us to a fairly long-term contract
Right.
with Edison. So that was determined to not be a great deal for the community. So then staff was asked, well, what if we did it on our own? So we received a report at the Maintenance and Construction Committee, the last meeting, I believe on the 23rd, and that report asked for $300,000 to put charging stations at various clubhouses. And there's no budget. So this
Okay.
would have, that $300,000 would have come out of the contingency fund, which is not what the contingency fund is. The
Exactly.
contingency fund is essentially for emergencies. So a secondary proposal was created primarily by Steve Leonard to reduce that amount to 120 and to reduce the scope of the charging stations. That passed the Maintenance and Construction Committee. So then GRF then had to act upon that proposal. Well, we voted it down because we didn't feel a great need coming from our community. Any person that has their own garage has no issue with an electric
Exactly.
vehicle. Any person that lives in the mutuals without a garage has the same rights and the regulation regarding golf carts.
Right,
And there's a
exactly.
fee, like I believe it's $240 a year, but it's a slow charge. And obviously the EV stations are a quick charge. So we voted that down because we just felt the timing was wrong and it was not a budgeted item. However, and there was mixed response.
Right.
We are putting EV charging stations at the maintenance facility and behind this building for the staff electric vehicles.
Right.
So we are taking care of our staff
Mm-hmm.
in our move towards electric vehicles. So we looked into the fact, could we take the staff charging that is going to be behind this building, and when the staff is not using it, could we have the charge point system which would allow a resident to
Mm-hmm.
seek power? That is possible. There were some arguments as to whether, when staff wants to be, will there be a residential vehicle there?
Exactly.
Is it going to create more burden on staff to
Mm-hmm.
manage that? But that's something we can further explore, but that is a
Right.
possibility. The Ayers Hotel has a charging station.
Yes, they do, yeah.
And so we've made contact with them, and it's my understanding that Ayers is okay if staff charges vehicles there, not residents.
Okay.
And the logic behind that is that if one of their hotel guests, which is what it's for,
Mm-hmm.
need the use of it, they know where to get a hold of whoever's in the charging station.
Exactly.
Where they wouldn't with a resident. And that's, but it's still, it's providing a need on a certain level without us having to spend money at this time.
Right.
So
And as you said, we're at a stage that down the road, it'll be revisited. Exactly.
when it becomes a true demand, it is something the community will deal with.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
right now, the number doesn't justify the expense when we're in budget season and
Right.
you have no idea all the things and what they cost.
Yeah, exactly.
So the other thing we dealt with was we have a contract with an architectural firm for the Performing Arts Center. And so we felt rather strongly that we should have an ad hoc committee for that project, just like we did at Clubhouse 2. And as I said, we love our new staff, but we don't always agree.
Right.
And I know Brad would have been just as happy if there was no ad hoc committee, as well as Ernesto Munoz, but we're hanging tough on this one. And we tried to keep the number of people on the committee down,
Mm-hmm.
but if it's an ad hoc, we need to do the 3 GRF, 2 from United, 2 from Third, and 1 from the Towers, or it would have to become a task force. But a task force doesn't have a charter and doesn't have the sort of authority that an ad hoc does. So we decided to stick with the ad hoc. We will bring the membership up to 3221,
Right.
and it is not, this committee will not have the level of responsibility and involvement that the Clubhouse 2 one did, because we have a very different architect and we have a very different staff, and it's a phased project. But we still wanted to guarantee director involvement because it's our facility and it's our money.
Exactly.
And the other thing is, one of the residents says, well, is there going to be a resident on the committee? No. And the reason there's not going to be a resident on the committee is that the architectural firm that we hired is very, very collaborative. So when we get into design development, there will be public meetings. And those public meetings will be particularly focused on regular users of the Performing Arts Center. And their input will be taken in and considered before the design development gets very far. So we're not having a resident on a committee. We're going to involve the users of that facility, and I think that's one of the reasons why this firm was selected, because that's the way to approach a project like that.
All right, we're just about out of time,
Yes.
unless there's something really pertinent you want to...
The other thing is more of a housekeeping thing, not a problem.
All right, and let's remember, all the board members that are going to be on that ad hoc committee, they're residents,
Oh, totally.
right? Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes people forget that, I think. John, good to see you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you stopping by today,
Thank you.
and we will be right back.